Welcome back to everyone who's watching Mamarwa Gasabo TV. Are going to be with me, Princess Mugisha. And let's start with the news headlines. Yesterday, at the World Bank Group meetings, Minister Yusufu Murangwa and the Rwanda delegation joined African finance ministers and the central bank governors in a session with IMF Managing Director Christine Giovanna. On the international scene, 14 West African deported from the United States to Ghana and amid the Go challenge. Nato defense ministers seek more arms for Ukraine as Western military support fades. Let's take a short break to be back into the news details. Welcome back into the news details, and let's start on news in Rwanda, where yesterday Minister Olivier Nduhungirehe received copies of letter of credence from His Excellency Mohamed Kali, ambassador designated of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to Rwanda with residence in Kampala. Also yesterday, Minister of State James Kawery received His Excellency Aurelia Loyito, ambassador of France to Rwanda, for what is called the discussion focused on continued strengthening of bilateral cooperation between Rwanda and France. And turning to our next story, yesterday, at the World Bank Group meeting, Minister Yusufu Murangwa and the Rwanda delegation joined African finance ministers and the central bank governors in a session with the IMF Managing Director. In his remarks, the minister highlighted Rwanda's key economic priorities and how the IMF can further support African-led development agenda. Central Bank of Rwanda Governor Soraya Hakuziyaremye delivered opening remarks at the 17th Annual GB24 Alliance for Financial Inclusion Policymakers Roundtable during the World Bank Group meetings, highlighting the importance of the financial inclusion for inclusive growth and its complementarity with the traditional financial stability and the monetary policy mandates of the central bank. Now let's turn our focus to this story, where the Extraordinary General Assembly for the National Forum for Political Parties elected Dr. Franka Habineza and Alphonse Ngubana as senators on October 14, 2024. Once confirmed by the Supreme Court, Dr. Habineza and Ngubana will replace Senior Alexis Mugisha and Mukamurangwa, whose terms will end on October 2022-2025. Dr. Habineza is a politician and an environmental advocate in Rwanda. In August 2009, he officially entered politics by founding Democratic Green Party of Rwanda, a party focused on democracy and environmental protection. Meanwhile, Ngubana is president of the Social Democrat Party, PSF, and has also served as a spokesperson for the forum during a 6-month mandate from September 2024 to March 2025. PSAP is a party focused on solidarity and development, promoting policies based on social unity, justice, and sustainable development for building an inclusive country. In both 2017 and 2024, PSAP allied with other parties to support President Paul Kagame of the Rwanda Patriotic Front in his presidential campaign. Let's take a short break to be back into the international news.
Bakiriya bacu, turabamenyesha ko Danobe Home yabaye Smart Home. Ni impinduka zigamije kongera ibicuruzwa byiza kandi biramba, by'umwihariko ku biciro bibanogeye n'uburyo bwo kwishyura buboroheye. Wadusanga aho dukorera KBC Kimihurura cyangwa ugasura urubuga rwacu wa/smarthome.rawa. Wanaduhamagara cyangwa se ukatwandikira ku murongo wa telefone ukurikira 07 88 90 50 90.
Welcome back onto the international news, where the Nato defense ministers will meet later on Wednesday to try to drum up more military support for Ukraine amid sharp drop in deliveries of weapons and ammunition in recent months. War-torn country still fighting off the Russians' full-scale invasion. Sandra Tumukund proceeds.
Starting our international news, let's begin on Africa. A group of 14 people has become latest West Africans deported from the US to Ghana under the accord between the countries, said a lawyer whose group filed a lawsuit Tuesday seeking to block the arrangement. Oliver Bakali Vormao, who represents migrants, said the latest group of 14 West African nationals arrived on Monday to bring the overall total to 42 deports accepted by Ghanaian government. His group, Democracy Hub, filed a lawsuit Tuesday against Ghana's government, aligning that the agreement with Washington is unconstitutional because the Ghana parliament did not approve it, and that it may violate convention that forbids sending people to countries where they could face persecution. Government spokesman Felix Kwake Ofosu said the Attorney General would defend the arrangement in court, but otherwise declined to comment. The administration of US President Donald Trump has been cracking down on migrants who have entered the country illegally, saying that it is especially targeting those who have criminal records, including those who cannot easily be deported to their home countries. Dozens of deports have been sent to Africa since July after the Trump administration struck largely secretive agreement with at least 5 African nationals to take migrants under a new third country deportation program. Led groups have protested the program, saying it is opaque and sends deports to countries where they have no ties and where they are likely to be denied due process. In some cases, migrants have been deported to third countries even when their home countries would have accepted them. Critics last month, the US deported an initial group of 14 Western African immigrants to Ghana, where authorities later said all of the deports had been sent to their home countries elsewhere in West Africa, including Togo, Nigeria, and Mali. However, lawyers told the Associated Press in September that 11 of them still were being held at military camp on the outskirts of the capital, Accra, in what they described as terrible conditions. Since then, 10 of those migrants have been deported to Togo, even though only 2 are Togolese. Bakar Vormao, the US sent first group of 5 deports to Eswatini in July, saying they had been convicted of serious criminals, including murder and child rape. Since then, the US has been also deported other migrants to South Sudan, Rwanda, and Ghana. It also has an agreement with Uganda, though no deportations there have been announced. 6 deports are still detained in an unspecified facility in South Sudan, while Rwanda hasn't said where it is holding 7 deports. Turning to our next story, an army commander who led a mutiny in Madagascar said on Tuesday the military has taken power after President Andry Rajoelina was impeached by lawmakers and forced to flee the country following weeks of youth-led protests. Rajoelina had refused to step down despite escalating Gen Z demonstrations demanding his resignation and widespread defection in the army. Landrianirina later told reporters a committee led by the military would rule the country for a period of up to 2 years alongside a transition government before organization new election. In a day of turmoil for the nation of Southern Africa's coast, the 51-year-old leader, whose whereabouts are unknown, early sought to dissolve the lower house of decree, but lawmakers went ahead with a vote to impeach him, leaving the country in a constitution deadlock, which the military seized upon the declare they were taking charge. Rajoelina, who himself came to power in coup in 2009, condemned the power grab by the military in a statement. Concluding our international news, a recent series of mysterious drone incursions and airspace violations by Russia warplanes has fueled concern that President Vladimir Putin might be testing NATO's defensive reflexes. NATO defense ministers will meet later on Wednesday to try to drum up more military support for Ukraine aimed a short drop in deliveries of weapons and ammunition in recent months to the war-torn country still fighting off Russia's full-scale invasion. The ministry will also debate a call from NATO's chief to lift restriction on the use of the aircraft and other equipment so they can be used to defend the alliance's eastern border with Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine more effectively. A recent series of mysterious drone inclusion and airspace violations by Russia warplanes has fueled concern that President Vladimir Putin might be testing NATO's defensive reflexes. Some leaders have also accused him of waging a hybrid war in Europe, but Moscow denies this. At the same time, new data on Western military aid to Ukraine is showing that it lagged by 43% in July and August compared to the first half of the year, according to Germany's Kiel Institute, which tracks defense and financial support to Kyiv. The fall occurred even after European allies began buying American weapons for Ukraine under a new financial arrangement known as the Prioritized Ukraine Requirements. Saula Sandra Tumukundi, Mama Rwagasabo TV.
As we come to the news edition today, let's go back with the news headlines. Yesterday at the World Bank Group meetings, Minister Yusufu Murangwa, the Rwandan delegation, joined African finance ministers and the central bank governors in a session with the IMF managing director. On the international scene, 14 West Africans deported from the United States to Ghana amid legal challenge. NATO defense ministers seek more arms for Ukraine as Western military support fades. Thanks for having me. Stay tuned.